Okay, we're talking about marquetry. Marquetry is where we create pictures from timber. We cut thin sheets of timber called veneer. So a veneer is a very, very thin sheet of wood cut from a round log. A round log is a tree that is just the trunk of a tree with the bark and the branches removed. So you have two ways of making these thin sheets of veneer. First way is called the rotary cutting method. And what that is, you have your log held up on a machine at either end. You've got a blade. The blade stays in place and the log spins and it peels off the sheet of veneer. As if you were peeling a potato or if you were peeling the skin off an orange. It's the same idea. So the log keeps spinning into the blade and you get this big long continuous sheet of veneer. That is our rotary method. It's very good for creating big huge strips of veneer or sheets of veneer, but you don't get a nice grain pattern. So for that reason, the second method is the slicing method. Slicing method is basically as if you were going to cut a tomato with a knife. Same idea. The log is just held in place and the blade takes really, really thin slices off the log. The difference here is that you don't get big, long, continuous sheets. You only get a sheet that's the size of the log. But the good thing here is that you get nice grain patterns like flame grain. So then marquetry, we said. Marquetry, this is the process of cutting different coloured veneer to form a picture or design. So you use the veneer to form a picture or design. I'll show you a couple of these now. So these are some examples of marquetry. So you can see you've got lots of different types of timber. So you have light, dark, and then a couple of in-betweens. And you create a pattern or a picture. Over here with the bird, you can see the bird is created from lots of different pieces. So the background has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces in the background. Then you've got the food is created from other pieces. That little shadow is a different piece of veneer. The bird itself, there's 2 separate pieces for the legs. You've got one for the tail, one for the back, one for the front of the bird, and then you've got the beak, and even the eye is a teeny piece of veneer. Then you've got a special piece of veneer on the sides, and the border is made. So you've got loads and loads of different pieces of veneer. The flower here would be more straightforward in that there's less pieces in it. You've got 1, 2, the petals, there's 4 separate pieces, and then you seem to have about 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces for the actual flower itself. So that is a more basic type of veneer, but you can see that some of these get really, really complex in their designs. So getting into the more complex stuff, you're talking about this kind of stuff here. So that would be really, really complex marquetry where you might have 50 or 60 different small little pieces in one. The table, that is about as good as it gets. So you can see the table there, the marquetry done on the table. It's very, very well done. Back to the notes then. So what we have for doing marquetry is what's called the window method. The window method is where we're going to cut a hole out of a backing piece. So we have a backing piece of material. We're going to cut a hole out of it and then we're going to slot lots of small pieces into it. So the method, draw the design out full size on a piece of paper, transfer the design onto the backing veneer. So the backing veneer is like the main veneer. It's a big huge piece. So we've got our piece of paper here. We've got a piece of carbon paper to transfer the design. We've got our backing veneer. Put all those together, tape it in place so it doesn't move, and you just retrace the shape to transfer it onto the backing veneer. Number 3 then, you cut out the shape of the first piece from the veneer with the scalpel. Use the window to create it to trace the shape of the piece. So here's our backing piece. We're going to do the leaf in 2 separate parts. So you cut one half of the leaf out. So you cut this piece of the leaf out. You've got a hole left. You take your backing veneer piece and you lay it on top of a second piece of veneer. So I've got a different piece of veneer here, the brown veneer. And what we do is I take the scalpel and I trace around this hole that was created in the top piece. So I'm transferring the shape or tracing the shape from the top piece onto the bottom piece. I can then go cut that brown piece out and it should fit exactly into the hole. When I get it cut out, I tape it into the hole. So I tape it into place. Step 5 then, I come along. I've the backing piece and I've my first piece of veneer taped in place. I go and cut out the second half of the the second half of the design. So I've cut out the right hand side of the design now. So if I go back to my first page, sorry, I'll be cutting out this piece of the design now. So I cut that hole out, and again it's the same process. I take a different piece of veneer again, so a third piece of veneer, and I trace around the hole. So I trace around this hole again, and then I can go and cut out the white piece. So I end up with 3 pieces of veneer. I end up with the backing piece, I end up with a brown piece, and then I end up with the red piece, and I'll tape those all together. If you've got more pieces, so you just repeat the process until all the pieces are cut and taped in place. So whether you've got 2 pieces, 3 pieces, or 100 pieces, it's the same method. You cut a hole out, trace it onto a piece of veneer, and then you tape the bit back in. So it's nearly like putting a jigsaw together. Number 7 then, glue the finished piece onto a piece of wood. And to do that, so what we're going to do is take our veneer and we put it onto a backing piece. So to do it, we have our veneered section. So this is the backing veneer with all the little small pieces taped in like your jigsaw. We're going to glue that onto a piece of wood. The piece of wood could be a tabletop or the top of a jewellery box or any piece of wood at all. So what you have to do, spread an even layer of PVA glue over the wood. You use that with your brush, so just normal PVA glue in a brush. We brush on glue all over the piece of wood. We place the veneer on top of the wood and flatten it out with a veneer roller. So you lay it down on top of the glue, and automatically you'll get some bubbles and some ripples in the veneer. So you use what's called a veneer roller. So it's like a roller with a very, very hard roller on it. So it's a plastic roller, and you can use that to flatten out all the air bubbles. Then we need to clamp it in place. So we've got our veneer and our backing piece. We lay a piece of paper on top of the veneer so that no glue oozes out and sticks the veneer onto this top piece. And then we come along and get 2 G-clamps, and we get a waste piece of wood and a waste piece of wood to keep everything flat, and we clamp the whole thing together. So you clamp everything in place. Let it set, and then your veneers will be done. After it's set then, you take out your veneer. You might have a little bit of sanding to do or a little bit of tidying up, but that's basically your veneer done.